Hello and welcome to Alpha 18.4. I'm Fantastic Mr. Ghost, and this is a continuation of my coverage of the past 7 Days to Die releases, starting at Alpha 16. Here's our timeline thus far. Alpha 18 was officially released on October 2nd, 2019, under a year after Alpha 17, which was released on December 22nd, 2018. This release should have stayed in the oven longer for playtesting. Let's get into it. This will not be a Let's Play series, but a single video essay. Why? Well, this release progression is horrible and is worse than Alpha 17. I became so annoyed with the progression, I set the experience gain to 300% once I maxed out strength. The Fun Pimps still had the idea that a player would be focused on an attribute tree, but failed to realize that not everyone is playing on a multiplayer server with friends. More on this later when I cover the perk tree. Before I continue, one thing I forgot to address in the last 17.4 series was zombie fall damage. Zombies would die if falling from a certain height. Not sure what the details are, but in Alpha 17, zombie fall damage was reduced to 33% of current health, according to some basic research I did on the topic. Now, I never used fall bases until recently, and I only use them to keep zombies from going into the destroy everything mode. I think zombies should take some fall damage, and agree with how the Fun Pimps address this issue. It's a game after all. But it's clear at this point that the Fun Pimps started their whack-a-mole campaign against the players back in 17.4 and was ramped up more from there. Let's discuss some basic zombie behavior and combat. Whiffing is even worse with zombies and is frustrating as usual. In the background, you'll see some examples of this. Now, I'm still trying to put my finger on it, but the hitbox is still too tight, or the game seems to calculate melee weapon hits oddly. Sometimes it feels that if your character is too close to the target, the game ignores any object right in front of the character. For example, I swung at a zombie running right into me, and my sledge hits a block behind the zombie. It's just a poorly implemented system at this point. And I don't remember having this issue in 1.0 up to 2.0. Allowing someone to playtest this game that is outside their group will root this type of thing out. As I mentioned in the 17.4 series, I don't think the Fun Pimps playtest these updates before releasing them. Zombies jump like Michael Jordan in this release. Zombie fall bases were the meta for a while, as I stated before, and still work in Alpha 18 though. As I mentioned before, the fall damage was nerfed to combat this. Another meta I didn't mention were underground bunker bases in Alpha 16. The zombie digging or ground pounding mechanic was added in 17.4. Also, a player can ride a bike around on Horde Night and never have to build a base or attack a zombie. You'll see the footage here running in the background. I just rode a motorcycle around and never had to do anything on a Horde Night. This was fixed later on with attacking birds while in a vehicle. I don't use these tactics as it's not fun, and I want to fight the zombies to get the experience. I also enjoy building horde bases. It's just fun to do, and it's what the game is about. However, I don't fault players for playing this way. Now, it seems that random wandering zombie hordes were reduced in frequency and size. As I was building the horde base, and also some builds to showcase them in this video here, I noticed that the zombie hordes were just non-existent. They did occur, but they were really weak. Kind of disappointing. Another thing I noticed is when you go into a POI, they reduce the amount of zombies, which makes leveling so much tougher now. If you're going to have a perk-only system in a game, then the player needs to have experience in order to level up. Reducing the amount of opportunities to gain experience is not a good idea, and that's what they did in 18. The Demolisher has made his grand entrance on this version, and he is a base-destroying asshole. Another thing I noticed is the pig, or boar. It's stronger than a damn zombie now, for some reason. Before, it would take 1 or maybe 2 stone arrows to kill. In my footage here, I am maxed out on agility, pretty much all the perks. And it took 5 arrows to kill. In beginning game, it was over 10. If you do take on a boar, be sure to build defense systems before attacking a pig when starting out, because you're going to get killed. They introduced this zombie beast or surge mode, and it sucks. I hate it, and it doesn't make any sense. Why do the zombies have an adrenaline surge? Their brains are rotted, for crip's sake. In my opinion, this was added just to make the game artificially tougher. Another mechanic I've noticed is zombies that are lying down on the ground sleeping have an attack right when you approach them before they even get up or move. Yes, zombies can plan perfect hits while on the ground sleeping in this release. I experienced this but twice, so I don't have any footage. It's really annoying, but it's the fun pimps doing the fun pimps things. Also, zombies have an arm swing attack upon death too. However, I don't know if this will result in the player taking on damage. I didn't notice any. Just be sure not to be too close to a zombie on the final attack sometimes. Infection has made it back to the game. In 17.4, I don't think I was ever infected once, but it's back. Zombies still have 10-foot arms, and we have 1-foot arms, or meters for those outside the USA. And as a note, we can't hit or shoot through doors yet. This comes later on. Birds are more realistic but invoke bleed, and so do the zombies. The bleed chance seems to be much worse compared to Alpha 17.4. One time, I just applied a bandage to fix bleed, only to have bleed from another zombie back to back. It was nuts. So yeah, they went a little too crazy with bleed in 18. 17 was bad enough. We have a new animal introduced into the winter biome, the mountain lion, and he's a nasty little sucker, but a good source of meat, and I'm glad they added a new creature to the game, along with the demolisher. The death debuff has changed once again, and it's just flat out immersion breaking. In Alpha 16, your health bar would decrease due to wellness if you die, and only certain foods would bring it back up, for example, the meat stew. This has a strong survival aspect to it. In Alpha 17.4, it was a simplistic debuff timer to all attributes for 30 minutes. Now in Alpha 18, just grind out more zombie kills to get your experience bar back to where it was after a very hard to see penalty bar is diminished. Notice in the footage here, I'm showcasing it. This death debuff mechanic is still with us and just needs to be reassessed. They should go back to the wellness system because it made more sense. Speaking on experience, it's a major grind in this release. I'd have to compare XML files to be sure, but it seems that they increased the spread between leveling up. This is a 10 to 15 hour game at best, but with a default 100% experience gain setting, you're looking at grinding out T5 POIs for 50 hours or so just to fill up one tech tree, plus a few other trees needed for survival and crafting. In my solo playthrough, I was on day 42 and only at level 58. That's only 62 perk points to apply to this crappy perk-only system. Let's talk about loot. It's fairly good, and I'd say better than 16 and 17, but RNG can frustratingly hold a player back. When it comes to towns, they seem smaller with less to do. Trader quest rewards seem to have been nerfed. I guess the fun pimps thought that the perk Better Barter wasn't getting enough love from the player base, which is alright. The extra experience and dukes, plus a small item as a reward, make these missions decent to spend time on. Oh, another note, trader missions now list north, east, south, and west directions now. At least you know kind of where you have to go in order to meet up with the quest. For some reason, T6 quests weren't available after many tries. I'm not sure why, but the T6s or Tier 6 missions are just T5s with some special case at the end, using version 2 as a reference. Alright, let's talk about water a little bit here. Players can obtain murky water from the water sources as normal. But no more pure water, only murky from cooking snow, which is more realistic, I guess. And cans cannot be used to boil water anymore. Now, I never used cans since jars are so abundant in the world. In fact, I've never crafted a glass jar since I've started playing 7 Days to Die. Oh, the skill tree. It was reworked and is so much better than 17.4. It still sucks in some regards, but yeah, it's better. Each attribute has its own melee and ballistic weapon associated with it, which is obviously still the case in the version 2.0 release. Also, books were introduced, but not all weapons have books associated with them yet. Further releases added them in. Books are a nice addition to the game and are a reward for exploration and looting. These books can also break up the boring action of leveling up, pick a perk, monotony. Let's go through each attribute briefly here. Perception now has a spear, but it's called the javelin in the tech tree. I'll call it a spear from here on out. The spear can be thrown, but this feature was removed later on, so I'm not going to cover it. No spear books are in this release. They came later. Marksman rifles and explosives are under this perk tree, and that's all. So they spread them out, all the weapons, which I'll discuss here. And lockpicking is finally here and available as a perk. I do not like lockpicking in this game. It's trash. Strength now has the sledge, club, and shotgun. The sledge is amazing and has a massive area effect for crowd control once maxed out. But in version 2, it's way better. The club is very weak in this version. My assumption is that the club was downgraded due to the batter up books. So if you get the perks and the books, the club becomes a really powerful tool. I guess you call this a balancing. Fortitude now has fists. They have 3 wraps that you can put on your fists. The AK-47 and my favorite, the M60. Unfortunately, we still have heavy armor under Fortitude. Thankfully, this is fixed in 2.0, where it's now a general purpose perk, along with light and medium armor. Agility has knives, archery, and handguns. Included is the SMG, I believe, in this perk tree. Flurry of blows, still under agility, and does not list the sledge for your information. So the sledge does not have any books, and they used to have flurry of blows, including the sledge, which didn't make sense, because it's agility and strength, and why would you cross over? So they adjusted that, I do believe. In this version here, under agility, the sneak movement speed perk was removed. I think it's in a book form now. And finally, intellect. It has the stun baton and the turrets. The auto turrets. Yahoo! I like turrets. They're fun. Let's talk about the crucible. It is a vital instrument in making steel. And you need steel in order to progress your weapons, your tools, armor, and many other things for base building. And they gate this thing so hard, not only behind RNG, but the intellect tech tree. Remember what I said earlier about how the fun pimps seem to think that everybody's going to be playing this as a multiplayer game on a server? And no, they're not. Not everybody's going to be doing this. So I was on day 42, and I did not have a crucible because I was focusing my points in strength and fortitude and other things, so I could defend myself and run a horde. So here's the breakdown. If the trader does not have a crucible, you have to loot for a crucible. Schematic. Yes, you need a schematic. A guaranteed way to get a crucible is perking into intellect all the way up to level 10 intellect and engineering 5. That's 17 perk points plus another 5 for a total of 22 perk points. That's 22 levels to get a crucible. Who the hell thought this was a great idea? It's beyond me. They were thinking that RNG was going to solve the problem. No, it doesn't. RNG just makes it worse. So this is why I decided not to do a Let's Play on this, because I'm not going to have RNG rule my life in a game where I need to be able to progress in a certain amount of time. It's just not going to happen. All right, let's move on from the perk tree. We'll be doing more complaining about perk trees, I'm sure, in 19. So the internet lied to me once again. Turns out that the Grandpa's Forgotten Elixir is in this version. My search told me it was Alpha 19 when I was researching it for the Alpha 17 series. So once all the vehicles are crafted, we can get those points back. It's about 5, so that's good. Health and stamina increase by 1 point per level up. So no more wasted perks in Fortitude and Agility. Probably one of the most idiotic things they ever done to this game was in 17.4 by forcing you to perk into Fortitude and Agility to increase your max pool on health and stamina. It was just beyond dumb. Unfortunately, in this release, barbed wire has gone the way of the dodo and was removed. So we only have the really cheap barbed wire fence for 200 hit points to start out with. On the other end, the iron spike trap has 132 hit points per stage at 3 stages for a total of 396 hit points. When a zombie hits the barbed wire, it kind of stuns and gets popped back, and it gets him into a stun lock, which is really nice. The iron spike traps are just more damage dealing, and they just rip through them. So I found that the barbed wire was a little better, and even though the hit points was lower. One thing that I kind of noticed was the zombies make some noise when walking, but it's inconsistent over certain terrains and zombies. The crawling zombie is one of them where you don't hear them until they start making like actual noise out of their mouth. So zombies sneaking up on players is a little better in this release. And they don't spawn in right behind you when you turn around, which is kind of nice too. Version 2.0 adds more noise, which is going to be weird when I get back to that version. It's possible that they updated the Unity engine for this update because it does seem like there's better lighting and detail compared to 17.4, but there is a washout effect, which I don't know why that's there, and I did try to find out how to fix it, but I just didn't see any slider that would do it. There are new POIs and slight improvements to existing POIs, but a lot was copied from Alpha 17 into 18. Dashong Tower, Higashi, Crack-a-Book, Shamway, and the Shotgun Messiah headquarters are in Alpha 18. Now, in my 17.4 playthrough, I should have went into the Nav's Gain map that they handcrafted because they are guaranteed to be there. But in my random gen map, I just could not find them. And you know what? I'm not going to bother going to every corner of the map to find it. But I'm pretty sure that these buildings are in Alpha 17.4. One thing to note is that the points of interest, or buildings, look more lived in with some clutter added. They just look more busy and like, yeah, something hit the fan, when you're going through these. All right, let's talk about schematics. They are king in this version. The age of learn by looting is here, folks. But we can still perk into the tech if the schematics are being elusive, such as the Crucible. For example, we can either find the bacon and eggs schematic or perk into Master Chef, which is under strength now, for some reason. Perking in gives more benefits though, like faster craft times or less of a recipe consumed, things like that. Guns and tools scrap to parts. These parts are needed for crafting, which is still in version 2.0. Higher quality guns and tools do more damage. So quality 1 does less damage than a quality 2 and so on and so forth, quality 6 being the highest damage output. Quality 1s now have 1 mod slot. However, quality 2 remains unchanged with only 1 mod slot. Quality 6 has 4 slots, which was decreased from Alpha 17. I think it was 6 slots in Alpha 17. And we can install mods and armor while it's equipped. That's a nice quality of life feature I'm glad they added. There is no more radiation zones surrounding the map. Now we have a water border. The hazmat suit was removed, but it's still in the creative menu, just like the barbed wire. So if you wanted to just spawn it in, you can. Another thing I noticed is the small farm plots placed randomly with potatoes and blueberries are gone. And cornfields have less corn. This is to, most likely, push the players to perk into farming. The garden hoe and fertilizer were removed, So the fun of finding human turds is no more. Farming is now done in craftable farm plots, which you place down. Again, the fun pimps need to realize that removing things, then regulating them to a boring perk tree is not fun. Some things should be left to player exploration and non-gated crafting rather than slapping it into a dumbed down and boring perk tree. We still have puffer coats and glass jars. In fact, we can craft puffer coats after finding the schematic in this version. As a reminder, in Alpha 20, they remove the glass jars. When hot, thirst increases only the rate. No more debuff to the top strength attribute. And when cold, calories consumed increase, and that's it. So I think they kind of made it a little easier on the temperature. So you can see that the fun pimps are trying to get away from maybe some temperature related issues in the game. I don't know why. It's just, to me, it was kind of fun to manage that. Surprisingly, no food poisoning from canned foods, so I'm glad they backed that out. The mining helmet has no light. You need a mod for it. Really? But it's a minor issue.
Bruh.
We can obtain steel from street lights and vending machines with a wrench now. Wrenching workstations yield forged iron and mechanical parts. The materials obtained from workbenches was nerfed later on. We can't be giving the players the upper hand now. Finally, in this version, dukes scrap and or melt down to brass. Obtaining bullet casings are a foregone conclusion. This makes trader missions really important going into late game and beyond. Brass radiators can be obtained from the compressor units and iron radiators inside POIs. You have to wrench the compressors to get the radiators. However, a simple whack from my sledge will yield a radiator from the iron radiator that's in the house. I don't know what it's called. In my opinion, getting a radiator from a radiator is kind of weird, but I'll take it. Oddly enough, we can now craft gunpowder in our inventory. Not the best, but it can be done. These small rocks only net stone and no longer provide nitrate, lead, and coal. However, there are resource nodes above the ground that direct the player to those specific resources. Dumbed down mining or quality of life? Tell me what you think in the comments below. All that aside, all resources are differentiated from the soil and rock, which makes mining less of a chore. The 7.62 and 9mm ammo are unlocked day one and crafted in a workbench, as usual. The tool and die set is gone. High-powered and AP ammo introduced in this version, and the steel ammo was removed. Can't say I miss it. Let's talk about some blocks now. The path cost fixed for stairs and ramps. So dogs and zombies no longer beat on the ramps. They will actually run up them, which is great. In this version, there is still no building stress system. It's very frustrating. We, as players, still need to guess how far we can build out and then note that. Now, we still have block upgrade stages, but they've been kind of dumbed down. We have 2 wood, and each of those have the same hit points amount. So wood is 225 per stage, and then we add more wood to that for another 225 for a total of 450. Wood upgrades to cobblestone. And according to my testing here, as you'll see, cobblestone and wood go out to about 8 blocks, maybe 9, but let's just say 8. You can still make flagstone and upgrade it to cobblestone. In this case, you can go all the way out to 12 length. You upgrade the cobblestone to wet concrete, and concrete has 2 stages. Then wet concrete upgrades to steel. We only have 1 steel upgrade, where we used to have 2 in Alpha 16. So 17 did away with the polish. And the steel goes out pretty far, as you can see in this footage here. Alrighty folks, let's wrap this video essay up. The last thing I want to talk about is sneak. The baseline ability for sneak is so much better now. You'll see the footage here. I have the new night vision goggles on. They're a much crisper green. So enjoy the footage as I talk about this last topic here. With maxed out from the shadows, drawing your bow or firing a shot with any weapon won't wake up the entire stinking building anymore. Note that poor sneak implementation is why I shelved the Alpha 17 series earlier than I planned. Now, let's talk about the two big problems with 18, and that is the progression and the whiffing with the sledgehammer. Now, I didn't test the other weapons like the club. I don't know if I did or not, but it doesn't really matter because the whiffing problem is going to cover pretty much everything. It's that tight hitbox that they have with the zombies. Now with the spear, if you're jabbing, yeah, I understand you're gonna have to be a little more accurate. But the sledge, the club, and other things, they should be just kind of a splash damage. If you're whiffing, you know, a big, huge metal object through the air, you're gonna hit something. And mainly, you're not gonna hit something behind the object you're swinging at, like a wall. So that was pretty much a done deal for me. And then, like I said, the progression with the crucible and all that, it was just, no, I ain't doing this. But when I increased the experience gain to 300% after I got through a bunch of hordes, mainly I had strength pretty much all maxed out. Now I wanted to start getting the sneak, so I maxed it out and I wanted to test it at 300%. So it went a little better, but believe it or not, with 300%, it was still slow. They really did a poor job on this release as far as playtesting it, and this seems to be the case going forward, even into 2.0. And I think players have finally lost it. So again, starting off at Alpha 16, which was considered the pinnacle of 7 Days to Die, and then going to 17 and now 18, what I hope to do with this series, this mini-series I'm doing on the old releases, is to show newer players why the older players are in comments and on the live streams are going, this sucks. And, you know, when you come into a game at, let's say, 2.0 or 1.0, for example, you're not going to know about the old releases. You're not going to care. Why would you? Your baseline is what is now. But you're going to have veterans that have played this game for many, many years, over a decade, and they're going to come up and go, listen, kid, here's a nickel, and let me tell you about Alpha 16.4. And that's why I'm going over this. And again, I really enjoy 7 Days to Die, even 2.0. With the storms and the smoothies, I just turn that crap off. But the point that everybody's trying to make is, you know, especially the veteran players, is you're wasting time on crap that isn't needed, and you had everything you needed in 16.4. And the way I look at it is 16.4 was the baseline. For 17.4, they could have added bandits. 18.4 could have been the story, and then 18.4 goes into 19 for polish. And then 19.4 would have been the baseline for 1.0, and they would have been done. And that's maybe a little bit aggressive based on the fact that they're just an indie team, you know, whatever. But that's what they should have done. So what's next is 19.4, I think. I will be doing a solo test of it to see if it's worthy of a playthrough. So if you see a playthrough, hey, it was good enough to play. If not, it'll be another video essay. So last thing I want to ask for is, if you wouldn't mind, please hit the like button up above there on the video. It helps the channel. Also, it'd be nice if you made a comment for the algorithm, or just, you know, so your input on how this video was or what you thought of Alpha 18. YouTube has made some changes where they don't count views unless there's engagement. So a view isn't just watching the video anymore for some reason. I think that's how they're doing it. I heard about this through a couple sources. But if you dislike the video, let me know why. So thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Peace out.